I'm so glad to see you guys, and I have this amazing story called Once, guys. Are you guys ready? Okay, let's do this. Okay. It's called Once. It's going to be really, really exciting. Okay. For my mother, Gilly, and my grandmother, Joy, who first told me the stories of the brave and adventurous woman of my family, Kate. What a lovely message, guys. Okay, let's do this. I'm really excited. Once, by Kate Forsyth. Once, a long time ago, my great-great-grandmother grew up in the shadow of a cursed castle. Guys, meet her great-great-grandmother, and she lived in the shadow of a cursed castle. Guys, a huge castle, as you can see. By day she roamed the heathery hills. By night she sat on her grandmother's knee as the old woman told her stories. My great-great-grandmother listened. Guys, that's her great-great-grandmother, and she grew up in a castle, in a cursed castle, big, huge castle. And there's a lady there, a very, very nice old lady who's trying to read her stories, tell her stories. Once, a long time ago, my great-great-grandmother traveled far across the seas, over the rim of the world, to where the stars were new. Guys, now that's her great-great-grandmother, and she's all grown now, but she's on a boat, and she's trying to start a new life somewhere. And traveling across seas. She's traveling far and wide. She took with her one small chest and a head filled with stories my great-great-grandmother never forgot. Guys, that's her traveling on a boat, and she's going somewhere, starting a new life with just a chest, with just one small chest with her, as you can see. And that's a lot of people in a boat, and she is all grown up. Once, a long time ago, my great-great-grandmother made a new life for herself in a land with a fairy heart. Now, guys, as you can see, guys, she's moved on. She's moved in a new place. Well, it looks like Grandpa, great-great-grandpa, and well, she has made a new life for herself, guys. She built a house with her hands and told her children her stories. My great-grandmother listened. Now, guys, that's her great-great-grandmother, and that's her. That's her great-grandmother. Now, that's great-great-grandma, and that's great-grandma. And then she built this house with her own hands, and she's been telling stories of her life. And that's her great-grandmother, guys. Once, a long time ago, my great-grandmother searched for golden sand and fought fire with a baby's blanket. Now, guys, it's a new generation. It's a new generation. As you can see, that's great-grandma. And, well, she passed on her life lessons. Great-great-grandma passed on her life lessons to great-grandma. And as you can see, she's fought fire with the baby's blanket. As you can see. So she grew a garden and a family, lived a life full of stories my grandmother never forget. Now, guys, there was her great-great-grandma. Now she passed on her life to her great-grandma, and now that's her grandma. That's her grandma. So there's 3 generations has passed with all the life lessons and all life stories. Guys, lived a life full of stories her grandma never forgot. And that's her grandma. That's her grandma, guys. Once, a long time ago, my grandmother lived in the dark times. The world was at war. The very air was sick with poison. The night seemed distressed, forever. But there were always stories. My mother listened. Now guys, her grandma, meet her grandma, and well, she has lived with the stories her great grandmother told her, and then again she has lived with in the world where the world was at war. And then she told her stories to her daughter, and that's her daughter is her mother. And my mother listened. And once a long time ago, my mother marched in the streets for peace and stood up for her right to be free. Now guys, that's her mom. And she's been learning. She has been learning from her great grandmother. And look at that, she's all grown up, and that's her mom, guys. That's her mom, fighting for peace, fighting for freedom. And I think it's in Australia, forged a place for herself in the world, invented new stories. My mother never forgot. Now guys, she learned from her mothers, and she learned from her grandmother, she learned from her great-grandma, and look at that, she has made a life for herself, invented new stories to tell her, and look at that, she's fighting for peace. She's fighting for peace. Now, once, not so very long ago, I grew up in a world spinning fast, in babble of different tongues and tales, in a universe where stars are but grains of sand. Now, guys, it's her turn. It's her turn, and look at that. Now, she is growing up in a world that's spinning very fast, spinning with technology, spinning with the lessons, as you can see, a very modern tech lessons. But then again, it's a universe where stars are but grains of sand. Grains of sand. I collected stories like stones, shells, feathers, tales old and new, made up and true. Always I listened. Now look at that. Now she's all grown, guys. Now she's from all the generation of grandmas. Now she's been listening to all those stories, and she's growing up fast, and she always listens. She always listens. Now I stand here holding high a flaming torch lit long ago when words were first shaped. Guys, look at that. She's all grown, walking in the footsteps of her grandma, guys, as you can see. And she's holding a torch, a flaming torch, lit long ago where words were first shaped. Look at that. Passed down to me through generations, stories casting brightness into the dark. Now, guys, as you can see, now that's her. And now she's a grandma herself. And now look at that. And that's her granddaughter, and she is passing her entire life knowledge, like how her grandmother did, and she's passing her to grandmother too, passed down to me through generations. Reach up your hand, seize the flame, carried all your life, never forget. And that's her granddaughter. That's her granddaughter, all grown up and passing down life lessons, passing down all those stories, tales, and just generations living on. Generation just lives on, guys, lives on. As you can see, great Forsyth tales of our ancestors lives in Australia in this beautifully illustrated picture book. From the first perilous journey to a new land, to the great wars and civil rights movements, readers lived through key movements in Australia's fascinating history. Well, guys, we lived through Australia's fascinating history through her grandma's story, great-grandma's story. What a beautiful story, guys. Once, a long time ago, our ancestors shaped our stories. That is so true. Our ancestors shaped our stories, guys, and we will be passing our stories for generations to come.